Republic. Your paper was very inspiring, and you talk about the innovative approaches to combat climate insecurity in Africa. We know that Chad is in the Sahel region, and it is in the center of climate insecurity and is facing all that. Can you please tell us in very few words what your paper really talks about, and then we are able to take the message home in very few words? Thank you.
Merci, Monsieur le modérateur. Mesdames, Mesdemoiselles et Messieurs, permettez-moi de vous adresser mes sincères salutations en vos rangs, grades et qualités. Je m'appelle Noubadou-Madi Bonizita. Nous sommes devant vous aujourd'hui pour vous présenter les fruits de nos réflexions sur l'insécurité climatique en Afrique. Et bien de nos jours, le changement climatique a un effet croissant sur le continent africain. Il frappe durement les régions les plus vulnérables en accroissant le taux d'insécurité alimentaire, le déplacement de population, ainsi que les pressions exercées sur les ressources en eau. Nul ne peut ignorer de ce fait les conséquences notoires de la crise climatique sur la sécurité humaine et le développement. Considérant ainsi les menaces que fait peser l'insécurité climatique seule ou conjuguée à d'autres facteurs, il peut être établi un lien de cause à effet entre le climat et la sécurité humaine. L'insécurité climatique est donc une menace existentielle imminente pour le continent africain. Elle est certes un phénomène mondial, mais c'est à l'échelon régional que les mesures doivent être prises pour atténuer ses effets. Ainsi, que faut-il pour contrer l'insécurité climatique en Afrique? Avant de répondre à cette question, nous avons pu énumérer, à l'issue de nos recherches, 5 principaux problèmes correspondant à 5 propositions de solutions. Au titre des problèmes, nous avons dans un premier temps un manque de dispositifs performants, de surveillance et de veille environnementale. Deuxièmement, la politique climatique en Afrique connaît quelques limites du fait de l'insuffisance des contributions déterminées au niveau national au titre de l'accord de Paris. Troisièmement, il y a un déficit Troisièmement, très peu de pays africains sont certifiés, accrédités, jugeant ainsi leur capacité à porter des projets bancables et par conséquent accéder aux fonds verts pour le climat. Quatrièmement, il y a un déficit criard des dispositifs de collecte des services d'information météorologique et climatologique. Selon le rapport 2019 de l'Organisation météorologique mondiale, 80% des pays africains fournissent un service d'information climatologique et météorologique rudimentaire. Et cinquièmement, nous avons un déficit des systèmes d'alerte précoce multidangers. Pour répondre à ces problèmes, la première solution serait de cultiver la culture de l'intelligence environnementale. Il s'agit de renforcer cette culture au sein des pays qui l'utilisent déjà, mais en mettant un accent particulier sur le partage d'informations en matière de prévision, d'anticipation, de gestion de risques et de coopération. L'intelligence environnementale, dans sa phase anticipative, consiste à développer des scénarios à partir des données robustes afin d'avoir une information précise sur le type de vulnérabilité à l'échelon régional et local. Troisièmement, il faut définir une politique climatique harmonisée. Il est à remarquer que la politique climatique en Afrique connaît quelques limites. Donc il faut avoir une politique harmonisée qui fixe une vision globale et précise de l'action climatique en Afrique, avec des stratégies à long terme et des plans d'action développés à partir des scénarios, tout en améliorant bien sûr le contenu des CDN au titre de l'accord de Paris. Troisièmement, il faut renforcer les capacités d'adaptation et d'atténuation. Concrètement, il s'agit de contextualiser ces mesures par des actions simples, allant de la lutte contre la déforestation, à la mécanisation des pratiques agricoles et bien sûr à l'investissement dans l'énergie propre favorable à une agriculture durable et surtout accroître les capacités des pays africains à avoir accès aux fonds sur le climat. Soit cet accès peut-être, ils peuvent avoir un accès soit direct par le biais des entités accréditées, soit un accès indirect par le biais des entités accréditées internationales. Quatrièmement, il faut renforcer les services d'information météorologique et climatologique. C'est dire qu'il faut rendre efficaces ces dispositifs afin d'améliorer la collecte et le traitement de données, afin d'avoir des informations précises, fiables, susceptibles de guider les processus de prise de décision. Cinquièmement, enfin, il faut renforcer les systèmes d'alerte précoce multidangers afin de prévenir, d'anticiper et de réfléchir sur les risques d'adaptation des populations aux effets climatiques. Et bien sûr, il faut privilégier les risques de danger sur l'agriculture, l'insécurité alimentaire et la protection civile. En conclusion, si nous voulons accroître les potentialités de développement du continent africain, l'insécurité climatique doit être au centre de nos débats à tous les échelons. Pour contrer l'insécurité climatique en Afrique, une fois de plus, il faut avoir un service de veille et de surveillance environnementale performant, une politique harmonisée avec des stratégies à long terme et des plans d'action, des mesures d'adaptation, ainsi que de bons systèmes de veille, ainsi que de bons systèmes d'alerte précoce multidanger. Merci de votre aimable contribution.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bonizita, you have 5 points in your paper, very clearly articulated. I advise that you read this paper. His points are very, very clear. He talked about policies. He talked about environmental intelligence. He talked about harmonized frameworks that can respond to climate insecurity. He talked about early warning systems, very important and key issues. And I'm very sure most of these discussions had already been done in the previous sessions that we went through yesterday. I don't want to go so much into details again. We have yet another essay from Tanzania, written by Emfrey Mrema. He talks about managing threats associated with climate insecurity in Africa. Mrema, what do you have to tell us about all this?
Okay, thank you so much. As we have been discussing, and it's very clear that Africa is the most vulnerable region to the impacts of climate change, partly due to geographical factors, but also due to lack of enough resources that are needed to increase our adaptive capacity. So my argument in making sure that we manage threats, it's going clearly to have a socio-political system that will be run in a set of rules and effective institutional framework, so as to make sure that we have concrete solutions to this problem. On July, I was privileged to attend a high-level ministerial conference on migration, environment, and climate change that was convened in Kampala, Uganda, under the close partnership of the International Organization for Migration. We drafted the Kampala Declaration, which will be used to address climate-induced human migration and displacement. So during the sidelines of the event, I asked a certain government official that we have been having a lot of declarations. We have the Tripoli Declaration, we have Malabo Declaration. Do you think that this declaration will be effective? He said, yes, it will be effective if we will have a system that can stand firmly to make sure that what has been planned will be implemented. What I really want to say is that we should no longer be gathering to make plans. The plans are already laid out. What we really need now is implementation. We need to have a system first which will strengthen threat minimizers. According to the United Nations Secretary General report on climate change and security of 2009, it has identified climate change as a multiplier threat. So what we have to do is to make sure that we have a system that will come up with effective strategies so as to solve international conflicts, so as to solve statelessness, so as to address vulnerability which have been posed by the impacts of climate change. Also, on the other side, we will be talking about climate finance. To be honest, until now, we don't have a universal definition of climate finance. We keep gathering during COPs and other negotiations to discuss about climate finance without settling this thing. So now, Africa, we have to stand on ourselves and going forward with this agenda. Because in the portfolio of climate finance, despite that Africa is most affected, but it's only up to 1% of the climate finance has been allocated for Africa. So this thing is being critical, and we need to have a system first, which will ensure that we have a constant flow of finance, and second, to make sure that these finance are really allocated in the places which are vulnerable. Another point which is very important to make is that we need to establish a conflict-sensitive adaptation framework. When you board a plane, among the very common announcement is strictly prohibiting smoking. And they usually say that we have installed smoke detectors in the cabin and in the laboratories. We need to do the same for the African continent. We need to have a really good system, a robust system that can detect conflict in our areas, and making sure that we have early warning system, we invest in preparedness and making sure that these areas are well secured. We have a very good example of our brothers and sisters in Karamoja region who are suffering. 1.2 million people who are using that area, and it's an economic hub shared by South Sudan, shared by Kenya, shared by Uganda, and it is prone to food shortage. Right now, as we are talking, people are raiding cattle, and they even use armed weapons so as to secure and to access resources. We need to make sure that we have a framework that can really address this thing in a very local context, and making sure that we also identify these priority regions, including Sahel region, which accommodates more than 150 million people in the Western Western Africa and Central Africa. We need to do something on this, because this is the right time. As how François Hollande said, the former the former president of France, that we have a single mission, and this is to protect and hand over the planet to the next generation. We are no longer next generation, we are the current generation. We need to be involved. Africa has almost 60% of the population are under 35. So as we are gathering in the Tana Forum, I really look forward in the upcoming forums, we need a very special day of young people. You need to listen to us. We need to showcase the solutions that we want them to be implemented in the community. And last, this is a special request to the Tana Forum board, and we have the chair here. This is a very great achievement of making sure that youth voices are heard and incorporated in what we have been discussing. As we are approaching COP27, the government of Egypt made a very wise decision under the COP27 presidency. They introduced COP27 President Youth Envoy. We need also the same thing to be done in Tana Forum. We need Tana Forum Youth Envoy, who will be closely working with the Tana Forum Technical Committee and the board to make sure that we scale up the impacts and the inclusion of young people in local context. I know that we have youth consultation under Tana Forum, and I was privileged to attend one in Nairobi in 2019, but this is not enough. We need to make sure in our countries people are really engaged. And as I'm drawing to conclusion, we all know that Africa is affected by the impacts of climate change. But as we are keep meeting during these gatherings, including conferences, and we are heading to COP27, they have been telling us to have mitigation and adaptation. But as Africans, we need to sing our own song. And our very own song is on adaptation. We need to do adaptation. We need enough funds to make sure that adaptation has been at the center of everything that we are doing in the country and in Africa. Last, if not least, I really commend this initiative, and I'm looking forward that we can have something good. Kama sio sasa, lini? Kama sio sisi, nani? If not us, then who? If not now, then when? Se non ora cuando, se non tu chi, si no nosotros quién, si no ahora cuando. Thank you so much. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Humphrey. Thank you very, very much for the insightful message that actually you articulated very well in your paper. You remind me, 4 days ago, I was in Berlin, in the Berlin Climate and Security Conference. And when we talk about the 1% climate financing, none of the Africans was even there. I was sitting in Berlin, and the only people in the room was the ambassador of Ethiopia, Lulu, and the Minister for Agriculture and Environment of Somalia. Any other persons were not there, one person from Niger. And we have to stand up and start setting our own agendas when it comes to these issues. When we're talking about climate financing, the 1% we are talking about, we don't even know where it is in the first place. So who sets the agenda for us to get this 1%? If we are going to COP27, what kind of messages are we going to take there? And if possible, you should actually go and present these papers to COP27, in my view. I would also assume that it would be very important to prepare for COP28 in Dubai next year. So thank you so much for your paper, and I really congratulate the two of you who wrote on climate security. Let me shift my thinking and our attention to the role of regional economic communities in mediating peace in the region. And we have Fisher, who has articulated the role of IGAD in mediating peace and security in Africa. Fisher, can you tell us briefly? We know that IGAD has done quite a lot in areas of mediation and really, really stands as a guarantor for peace in the Horn of Africa. Tell us a little bit about IGAD and its role in the mediation of peace. South Sudan comes into my mind. I work for IGAD. I'm a conflict analyst. I have been in the center of the mediation of South Sudan peace agreement by IGAD. But I was also at IPSS for 7 years, trying to craft African solutions for African problems. I am really, really excited. I want to hear from you what new ideas you have brought into this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, moderator, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor and privilege to be right here to share my thoughts on IGAD and the mediation of conflicts in the Horn of Africa. As we all know, regional organizations, one of the reasons why regional organizations are established is to deal with regional peace and security issues. And in line with this assumption, IGAD was revitalized in 1996 to cover areas of peace and security. And since its revitalization, IGAD has been active actor in mediation of conflicts in the sub-region. And according to its establishing principle, peaceful settlement of intrastate and interstate conflicts through conflict prevention, political dialogue, and reconciliation were core areas of IGAD's mandates in terms of regional peace and stability. And in line with this principle, IGAD has been active in mediating conflicts in the sub-region. We can take concrete examples. For instance, IGAD's mediation role in the Sudanese conflict, in which resulted in the 2005 comprehensive peace agreement, which culminated the 2-decade-long civil war. And again, IGAD's involvement in Somalia conflict, which established the transitional federal government of Somalia. And again, IGAD's mediation involvement in South Sudan was critical, which resulted in the signing of peace agreements in the 2015, 2018, and also its effort continued to date for the stability of South Sudan. Even though IGAD has been accomplished such successes, however, I think there are some challenges that IGAD is facing. As President Mama yesterday noted, we have reversal in conflicts, the pattern of conflicts in Africa. And the same is true in the Horn of Africa. We have several challenges we face. To mention a few, for instance, there is tension between Somalia and Kenya over the maritime boundaries. Even there is intermittent civil unrest in Sudan. We have unsettled tensions between Ethiopia, Sudan, and Egypt over the GERD. And also, we have intermittent border skirmishes between Sudan and Ethiopia. Even we have internal conflicts in Ethiopia, and we can mention a lot. There is a problem in our sub-region. So, as this year's theme for Tana Forum is building resilience and managing conflict rates, I would like to end my presentation here by posing a question for you to take by yourself and answer. How can we help, or how IGAD can manage all the security challenges in its region? And how can IGAD develop resilience in mediating conflicts in order to promote sustainable peace in the sub-region? If this could happen, IGAD could be taken as a major actor for achieving African sub-regional solutions to African sub-regional problems. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's give a round of applause to all the presenters here. I'm very grateful that you have articulated your points very clearly. Once again, for those who don't know me, I'm Sunday Okela Ngoma. I work for C1. I work for C1 at the moment, but I worked for IPSS for 7 years from 2011. My primary role was to set up the African Solutions to African Problems Journal, which is now in print, and we are working along that. I'm very grateful that some of the people in the room still recognize, and now African Solutions to African Problem is on the platform. I'm very grateful for that. Now, I will open very few questions to the essay competitors who have really presented their work very well. If there is any reaction, addition, and questions that needs to be asked, please, I'll take a few questions. We have very little time left. I see one hand up there. Any question? You mean you have only one question to these wonderful youth and their ideas? And number two is there, Professor Akech.
All right, thank you so much. Humphrey, thank you so much for that insightful presentation. I'd like to play a bit of a devil's advocate here. Africa is rich in fossil fuels, and I understand that Africa only produces 1% of our carbon emissions. Do you think it is wise for us to totally alienate our fossil fuels and make the transition into renewable energy? Or perhaps we can create a dual approach where we utilize those fossil fuels that we're very rich in to facilitate industrialization while simultaneously funding our own transition into renewable energy. Thank you.
Question. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I think I'm taking the opportunity to ask the question or comment which I should have made earlier. And I'm really glad to see that youth have not been forgotten and that they have a corner to actually take the pitch and articulate their own worldview because they are the future. And in fact, this is good for Tana. Young people need to be prepared for leadership. And I think that is very, very good. I want you to, I want actually to ask, the panelists whether they agree. I have always wondered, how can Africa compete in this competitive world global economy when the brightest of us takes academia as profession and not politics? Would we compete with politicians who graduate from Yale, Harvard? Should we flip the thing a little bit to have the brightest in politics? I don't mind the brightest also to work in academia, but how can we compete when politics is left for the soldiers? Maybe sometimes school drops out. Can you be interested in politics, the brightest of you? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Prof. I think that question is directed to all of them. How can we fit ourselves into a competitive world in terms of leadership? You as the youth of today, and you are going to be the leaders of tomorrow. You will be sitting in this front row and telling us how leadership of Africa would be looking like. How can you fit into this competitive world where resources are also dwindling and we have issues of energy, renewal, and all that? I want to take one or two more questions before I close it out. And if there is any other questions, please. I would have loved to hear at least a question from a female, a woman in the room, if there is any. A mother? No question? Yes, please. Linda.
Thank you very much, and I'd like to congratulate you three gentlemen. It's not an easy thing writing, and so the discipline and the thoughtfulness that have gone into your work needs to be commended. But Sunday, this is to you. I know that there are young women who are also writing, and I do hope that next year at this forum, we will not have 3 young men, brilliant, but also 2 brilliant women included in this award. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Linda. I can assure you that in the previous essay winners, there was a lady. And I think she is also in these forums. They've been invited. And then even the Tana before, there was a lady. It so happened that this year, 3 gentlemen, 3 young boys from the African universities have emerged the winners. But we hope to get more ladies in this essay competition to come and sit and talk to us as well. Let me take the last question. Okay, there's another hand up there. I think there was also another one there, please.
Let me reiterate my congratulations to all of the winners. I have a very simple question. Where is your work going to be published? And I would encourage you, when you think about the answer to that question, to always think about publications like Spiders with Legs and get an op-ed out of it, get a commentary out of it, as well as a peer-reviewed piece. Thank you.
Publications. I think we will answer that. I will also add on to that voice, because your work needs to be publicized and be read by everyone. Let me take the last question. There was another hand up there. Yes, please.
Thank you. Last night I was having dinner and I came across a video clip which I thought that it was not authentic, and I had to do a lot of research to check on that clip, where someone was saying Europe is a garden and the rest of the world is a jungle, and we need to protect the garden. But in order for us to protect the garden, we cannot build walls, because the jungle has an immense capacity to grow. We need to go to the jungle and engage the jungle so as to protect the garden. And it got me disturbed. And I think that young people have a very important role to play in the future of this particular continent. And the African Leadership Center, we do research on, the vision that young people have in terms of leadership, in terms of peace, security, and development. My question to you as young people, given the challenges that we're facing in the continent, are there conversations that are taking place, among the youth in Africa in terms of what the youth envisage Africa to be? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that would be the last question because we don't have much time left. Some of the questions that could be answered by them, I think also we have the answers, like the issue of publication. We have the Commissioner and Director of IPSS. I'm very sure you're aware this publication will go to the IPSS website, on Tana Forum website. We also have African Solutions to African Problems Journal, which is being published, and some of these the work that reflects African solutions to African problems can be revised, peer-reviewed, and be published in that journal. On the issue of women, I think I've also clarified that. That is a question that could have been answered by anybody, but I think in the background that I know about IPSS and the work that I've been doing with IPSS for about 7 years, ladies and women, young girls are also part and parcel of this essay competition. Now I want to give 2 minutes to each one of you to summarize some of the issues that has been raised. If you feel you can have some kind of insights in answering that, 2 minutes, each of you, so we have 6 minutes. If we start with Fusier, 2 minutes. If you have anything to say.
Okay, thank you. I may not use that much. Just to make only one remark regarding how can we fit ourselves as an African. And I think first what we have to do is we need to appreciate what we have. And in my writing, what was I doing was just to appreciate what IGAD has been accomplished. And then, after doing that, we can see some of the weaknesses and how can we manage in order to better help that institution function. So, in order to fit ourselves in this time, we need to develop resilience as a team of this forum entails. In addition, we need to develop our institutions better. We have to develop shared norms and mechanisms of mediation, which even requires unreserved commitment of our member states, our leaders, the political will of our states. This will help us in order to better cope up with the challenges that we may face. And in terms of regional institutions, it has been a lot, it has been said a lot in the past discussions. There has to be proactive engagement for dealing with conflict, security threats, etc. So in short, I need to say we need political will, commitment in order to challenge, in order to tackle our challenges that we face together, and we can become giant. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Bonizeta.
Merci bien.
Energy renewal and issues of leadership. What is your view? Very quick.
Merci bien. Par rapport à la question sur l'Afrique, je pense que l'Afrique peut être compétitive en posant des actions ciblées, c'est-à-dire investir dans la recherche scientifique, investir dans la formation des jeunes et bien sûr réinventer le leadership. Ce n'est que par ces 3 moyens que je pense qu'on peut être compétitif dans ce monde épris de concurrence. Par rapport à la question sur la jeunesse, bien sûr, il y a des cadres de discussion à l'échelon régional et local des jeunes, mais encore faut-il que ces actions et ces initiatives soient portées, soient soutenues par les décideurs. Et notamment, cela invite opportunément à une volonté politique à intégrer les jeunes dans les différentes instances de discussion afin de faire porter leur voix. Merci.
Thank you so much. Humphrey, can you please conclude this discussion by giving your view on at least two of these very pertinent questions that have been asked about energy renewal and the issues of leadership?
Okay, thank you so much. There is an adage which says that if you want to go fast, go alone, and if you want to go far, go together. I think this is the very right time for Africa to raise the spirit of solidarity and making sure that we solve problems of one another as if they are ours personal. And since Paris Agreement was ratified in 2016, after it was signed in 2015, science don't lie, nothing significant has been done. And I think this is the right time for Africa to establish its own convention on climate change. We need to narrow down the ideas and the articles of Paris Agreement into regional context to make sure that we secure the interest of our very beautiful continent. And the very time to do this is now. Not later, not tomorrow, but now. I rest my case.
Thank you so much. Let us give a round of applause to the winners. Last but not least, before we conclude this, I have a message for all of you. The ESA winners, all of you are now officially part and parcel of the ESA winner alumni community, and you are supposed to be a member of the alumni community, which will be included on the website, and you will have discussions with your previous friends and colleagues who are already in the alumni. And also, you are not just alumni of Tana Forum, you are going to be ambassadors of Tana Forum. You're going to carry the name of Tana Forum out there. You're going to popularize the concepts, the ideology, the purpose for which Tana Forum is set, and you have ample time. So we count upon you as ambassadors of tomorrow. So when you come here next time, we expect you to also raise the flag that Tana Forum has been raising. Last but not least, Tana Forum recognizes the work that each one has done. So we have a certificate. We have certificates to give to you people. And I will request the chair of Tana Forum, President John Mama, to give this award to these wonderful essay competitors. Here it is. Excellency, these youth have done a wonderful job. I would like you to recognize their work and give them the certificate of appreciation. Bonitzita? Yeah. Bonitzita. Fisea? Humphrey Mrema. Do you have a message for them?
Yeah, thank you very much. On behalf of the board, we want to congratulate our young essay winners. Indeed, it's joy listening to them. And when you listen to our young people like this, then you have hope in your heart that, Africa, has the next generation coming up, and they have the talent to be able to step into our shoes when we are gone. And so I'll urge you to keep it up. The suggestions you made about more involvement of the youth in Tana activities has been taken on board, and I'm sure that at the next board meeting, together with my colleagues, we will discuss it and be able to come with some outcomes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I would like to hand over the microphone back to the organizer. You can now go back and take your seats. Thank you very much. the technical team, thank you so much. We're sorry if we went over time.
Thank you so much. Please, can we give them another round? So, I will call on our Chief Rapporteur, Kingsley, for 10 minutes to just refresh our memories, our minds, about the discussions that we've had the last 2.5 days. There's been a lot that has been said. It's important for us to reflect so that we can be able to know what to take forward. And Your Excellency has captured it well. The Tana Forum is a forum that also looks to build African engagement moving forward. All the suggestions that have emanated from the floor on how to make the forum better, how to make it more inclusive, how to ensure we take advantage of the great minds that we've brought all the way here are well noted. And this is something the technical committee and the board will deliberate on. Thank you to the youth. Thank you for your time and your reflections. I thank the African Union youth ambassadors who've been here with us throughout the day. I thank the heads of states who've also stayed throughout, our board that is here, and our secretariat that has been running tirelessly to keep you all happy and engaged. And I only had 3 minutes to distract you until the podium was done. So I think I did a good job. So our podium, thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for this opportunity. Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, can I hold this? Thank you. Your Excellencies, thank you very much for this opportunity to share some of the key takeaways from the sessions we've had throughout the 3 days of Tana deliberations, discussions, and engagements. For most of the period, we looked at 5 major thematic areas. The first one had to do with unconstitutional change of government and the recurrent coup d'etats on the continent. And one of the issues that actually came out strongly in the discussions was the concern among all participants that the gains of democracy have been rolled back, and the emphasis on the need to rethink structures that actually may be leading to these issues, to the rise of, or the re-emergence of coups. And central to that was the question of leadership failures. And leadership failures on the continent, and the agitation among the younger population who actually have a lot of potentials, but in many cases have also been excluded from the system. And within that context, the first day in which we had the tribute to the late President Kenneth Kaunda and his values-based leadership system provides us that background to think about how to rethink leadership within the African continent in order to make it work. The next issue that actually came up was about the impact of global insecurity on the continent. And from the conversations, one thing that came up was the consensus that truly the socioeconomic impact of the Russian-Ukraine war is being felt across Africa in relation to food security, energy security, and all of that. But then, most importantly, one point that came out of it was also the need to reform the multilateral system, because there was a call on Africa, or it really brought up the issue of where Africa lies within the global system, the global order, and how much what happens within that system affects Africa. So the call to restructure the system in a way that actually addresses African interests was also brought up. Issues around the issue of climate change, preparedness and adaptation, and as well as financing was also discussed. And a point that came up as well was about desecuritizing climate risks and emphasizing resilience-based approaches that focus on protecting basic human needs, such as infrastructure, drinking water, and environmentally friendly policies in a sustainable manner. Also, there was also the consensus around frameworks of environmental disaster management that should be multi-sectoral and decentralized in such a way that it moves from the local areas, from the center down to the local people in the communities who actually are immediately affected by some of the environmental shocks. And in that light, capacity building and funding that would help, especially first line responders in the community, to be able to adequately engage with climate extreme events that happen within their context was also discussed and agreed upon. On the topic around harnessing Africa's cultural heritage for resilience and integration, one point that also resonated across the discussions from the VC dialogues down to the discussions this morning was that culture shapes every aspect of our responses, our development, our behaviors, some of our choices, and how leadership is also structured. So it becomes very important to promote cultural diversity and harness cultural richness within the continent, and the need to integrate general history of Africa in school curriculum, because the idea that most African youth are beginning to look outside for a bit of just their identity is not the way to go. And so looking back or bringing African history back to school and helping to mold the next generation of leaders would be very useful. And the last point on that also has to do with looking at Africa not from the lens of the past, but from the lens of the present and the future, in terms of building the next generation of leaders who are confident about being Africans, who are proud also of being African, and who have the mental and physical capacities to carry on the legacies and what is required to be African. On the taking stock of Africa, the continental peace and security landscape, there was an emphasis on the need to reinvigorate the Tana Forum, to deepen dialogues, the dialogues that are actually being held here, even if it means engaging with difficult questions, some of the questions that may not have been engaged with over the past 3 days. It becomes important to deal with them, to bring them up, because the opportunity that this Tana Forum provides is one in which there will be robust engagement, and where you do not have that opportunity to do it, it becomes important to look at it again and revisit some aspects of it just to deepen the conversations. And I think central again is revisiting the concept or the ideas of multilateralism and where Africa is, and the importance of Africa's position in the world, and Africa being given that being allowed to live, to demonstrate its place in the world order. And finally, I think the last point here has to do with the greater synergy between governance and security pillars and the frameworks of the African Union working together in driving peace and security on the continent. I will stop here. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much to our rapporteur who was alert throughout this process, who was with us, who has managed to capture all the important things that were said and done. Before I call on His Excellency President Mahama to come and give us the closing remarks, I want to take a moment to thank the Tana Secretariat and the IPSS Secretariat, without whom 10 years of Tana success would not have been possible. So I call on you to please give them a hand, but I also call on the Secretariat. I know you're in the room. Please, let's put faces to the names, please. The Tana Secretariat. The Tana. And we have a small thank you to the Secretariat for the successes and for their effort and their time, so that you know, if you got your ticket on time, if your email was replied to at 4 in the morning, your room was changed, your agenda got here on time, there were people who were behind it. Your Excellency, I call on you to cut this cake with the Tana Secretariat and the Technical Committee for their dedication, 10 years of successes. Like the Tana board who are here with us. Sorry? It's the same cake? It's a different one today. Please, the Tana board. Thank you. Please, let's give them a round to thank them. I realize we don't have a slogan or a chant for the Tana Secretariat. We need to change that. Perhaps, Rapporteur, we may need to add that to the outcomes. So, thank you. Please, let's cut the cake. Thank you. A big thank you to the head of the Secretariat this year, Miss Letty, who's here with us. Letty, please wave. Letty, please wave so we can see you. Thank you. Who's been with us? Thank you. Thank you so much. So we are now coming to the final end of what has been a very engaging 2.5 days. And I cannot add, I cannot take away from anything that was said. But I want to thank you all, our participants, for staying here with us, for keeping the conversation going, for engaging, for picking up on what was said and taking it to the corridors, and for reminding us on what Tana really is. And we take it on board as the Tana Technical Committee and the Secretariat, and our board is here. We hear you. We want the conversations to be more productive, more engaging, and more fruitful. So we thank you so much. And on that note, before one last thing, I forgot to acknowledge just one person, one of our nominees, who's also his birthday and a big contributor to the African space, Professor Tim Muriti. Please, Professor Muriti. We are afraid to ask you how old you are or how young you are. I was told in Africa, once you reach 50, you no longer ask people how old you are, you say, how young are you? So we're not sure, should we ask you how old or how young? Where do you fall? How middle-aged are you? Fantastic. Thank you so much. So with that, Your Excellency, over to you for final closing of the session. I thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Hafsa. And indeed, gratitude goes to all of you. Just before I read out our appreciation and thanks, let me acknowledge two young women here. They've been with us all these days. They are AU Youth Envoys. We have Cynthia Chigwenya. Are you here? Yeah, good. Thanks for coming, and thanks for joining us. And we have Ms. Darren Chundo. Good. Thank you. Thanks for coming. Thank you very much. Let me congratulate Tana Forum again for a successful 10th anniversary forum, and to thank our Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, Prime Minister Abiy Mohammed, for taking time off to join us and personally open the forum yesterday. We want to thank the Prime Ministers, Heads of State, Vice Presidents who were able to travel and join us for this 10th anniversary forum. I want to particularly thank also the President of the Federal Supreme Court of Justice of Ethiopia, Madam Miaza Ashinafi. Unfortunately, she just left, but she's been with us from the first day at just a few hours ago. She's got to catch her flight back to Addis. Let me reiterate our thanks to Letty and the Tana Secretariat and the IPSS for the very efficient backstopping you have given for such a successful forum. I want to thank you for all the backroom work that you have been undertaking, the sleepless nights to be able to make this forum a success. I want to acknowledge our board. Unfortunately, former Prime Minister Haile Mariam Desalegn has had to leave us, but he's one of our very active board members. Professor PLO Lumumba is also one of our active board members. I acknowledge you. He took us off on a flying start with that Kaunda lecture, and we want to thank you and your panelists, Kaunda's granddaughter. We thank you for coming and paying such wonderful tributes to your grandfather, and Professor Shisua. We want to thank you too for that wonderful expose. We have Ambassador Shalabi, who has been a long-standing member of the board. We acknowledge you. Thank you very much for the very hard work you have put in to make this a success. And Her Excellency Catherine Samba Panza, former President of the Central African Republic, we want to thank you and acknowledge you. We thank the President of the Amhara region for the warm hospitality we've enjoyed since we came here. This is a very beautiful location, and we're happy that it continues to be the home of Tana. In one of the board meetings, when the conflict that has been ongoing was at its peak, we were wondering whether Tana could come to its home location, or we might have to vary it and perform this forum in Addis. Happily, we have come to a very peaceful Bahir Dar, beautiful city, very green, and I hope that we're going to go back to our communities and plant more trees so that we can replicate Bahir Dar in all our countries. I want to thank all the participants for the intense and frank discussions that we have had in the spirit of Tana. Tana is the foremost platform for discussions on African peace and security, and it creates the opportunity for frank and candid discussion. No holds barred. People are free to bring on board any thoughts that they have without any censorship. And so I want to thank all of you for coming to participate and for the frank discussions that we have had in the spirit of Tana. As you know, the emblem of Tana is a baobab tree. And so anytime you see this symbol, it is a symbol of the African baobab tree. And what does the African baobab tree represent? It normally is in the center of the village. And anytime important decisions are to be taken about the village, that is where the elders gather. And so Tana is our baobab tree, and we will always gather here to talk about issues of peace and security. I want to thank our sponsors, the German government, and specifically GIZ, for the continuous support that they have been giving to Tana. Want to thank the Blue Nile Resort, where this program has taken place. Want to thank Ethiopian Airlines for transporting all our participants here to Bahir Dar safely. I had the privilege to present the State of Peace and Security in Africa report. And unfortunately, it's a gloomy picture. We have unconstitutional changes of government. We have a regression of democracy. We have regionalization of conflict in various regions of Africa. And I believe that it is a call to action, and that we as Africans must put in more strenuous effort to ensure sustainable peace and security on the continent. Tana is not just a talk shop, and this is not the end of the discussion. We always have outcomes at the end of the forum, and so it is my hope that you visit the Tana Forum website, because there are various outputs that we're going to put there. We're going to put the summary of the VC's dialogue. For those of you who joined us at Bahir Dar University, we had a very wonderful dialogue there with the vice chancellors and the academia. We're going to put that on the website. We're going to put the summary of our Mele Zenawi lecture series, which was very kindly undertaken by Professor Shisua and the granddaughter of Kenneth Kaunda. We're going to have the whole State of Peace and Security in Africa report on the website. Indeed, it's on the website already. And so I just gave a summary of the 60-page document. For those of you who want the additional detail, you can go through the document. We're going to post 8 policy papers coming mainly from the different sessions that we held, and giving takeaways and additional recommendations on the various subject areas that we talked about. We're going to publish the essays of the 3 young people here who won the award for the best essays, and so it will be on our website. We're going to produce a video which summarizes what happened here over the last 3 days, and that would also be put on the website. For those of you who were called to do interviews, we're going to edit your interviews and also put them up on the website. And we'll have a pictorial storyboard of all the photos that we're taking. And so there are many outcomes that we'll put out as time goes on. We have accepted the feedback that we got, and I mentioned with the young people, the feedback we got from the young people, that we involve the youth more in the activities of Tana. At the next board meeting, we'll discuss it and see how we can bring in some more programs that involve the young people. We also take the feedback from one of the participants who said they want us to increase the dialogue, so that it's not just the presentations by the resource people, but they want more discussions amongst participants. And so we'll look at the program as it is, and we will adjust it accordingly so that we can have more interactive sessions and have enough time. I'll urge all of you to kindly fill the evaluation forms. They're very helpful to us in terms of fine-tuning the forum. And as you walked in, each of you was given an evaluation form. If you can fill it before you go, just leave it with the secretariat. If you're not able, you can always mail it back to us, and we will take your feedback seriously. And so on this note, we have come to the end of the 10th anniversary Tana Forum. And I wish all of you who came a very safe journey back. And it is my hope that next year at the 11th forum, we will see most of you here again. And so thank you very much, and may God take you back home safely. Thank you.